It's 3 p.m. Time for dinner with Nanny Bubby. How is everyone today? It is a Thursday. Feels like a Friday to me. I don't know why. I've had a rather long week, but we're hanging in there as my husband and I recover from the big honoring on Saturday night. We are still exhausted and trying to get back to our pre-engagement energy. Hey Frank Solly, so glad you're here. Just waiting for everyone else to find us and come on. So I am baking today, and that is a surprise because I'm not a baker. But here I am having roasted so much pumpkin that I am looking for great and healthy, well, more healthy than normal recipes when you bake, more healthy recipes when you bake than normal, to put this roasted pumpkin in. And one of them that I found was a great pumpkin banana bread, and it looks to be absolutely delicious. So we're going to get started. One of the things that I just want to say, if you're one of the gatherers who won the cooking retreat with me, it is going to be Saturday, November 13th at 3:30 p.m. Be sure to email me your favorite Thanksgiving recipe. I'm going to choose one of them to surprise you all and cook. And then I'm going to also send out the ingredients and everything else to all of you who are joining the retreat, who won the retreat. And I'm sending you the recipe, old family recipe, if you will, that comes from Piero's, from my dad. Believe it or not, I absolutely love it. And then I'm also going to pick one more of my very favorite recipes, which could be that Grand Marnier cranberry sauce, which was actually Tanya's, not mine, but I think that it'll be absolutely fabulous. So anyway, we'll see. I'm going to surprise all of you with something, but make sure that you email me your favorite Thanksgiving recipe, and we will take it from there. So we're going to start out with flour. Of course, we're going to put the flour, and I want to talk about ways in which we measure flour. So in Europe, they always measure dry ingredients by the grams. And the way that they do that is that they lighten the flour in order to literally, be able to make sure that it's not packed too heavily. So when actually, let me just take that back. If you're measuring by the grams like they do in Europe, it won't matter whether it's packed heavily or whether it's not, because at the end of the day, it's going to weigh what it's going to weigh. But in order to translate from European recipes of grams and weight, we Americans use cups as our measurement. Hey, David Reisner. Nice to have you here. You look new to me, so that's really very nice to have you here. So what we are going to do is we are going to learn that what we need to do is have a little bit, let me tip you down a little bit so you can see my decanter. I decant my flour, and we're just going to take it and we are going to lighten it. We're just going to lighten the flour. And that way we're sure that we're not packing it too much into the measuring cup. So this recipe calls for 3 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. And so what I'm going to do to make sure that we do this correctly is I'm just going to lightly, I've lightened it, and now I'm going to pour it right into the cup measurer. There we go. Now it's always a little bit to the top. What we do is we sort of cut it and level it off. And when we level it off, there it is. It's lightened. It's not too heavy. It wouldn't weigh too much if we put it onto a gram weigher. And then we're going to put 1. So that's the key with flour. You have to remember that flour originated in the European cooking, but we went out of the metric system for some reason. Hey there, Lucy. And we're just lightening this flour. We're just pouring it into the cup. And that's 2. We're just going to level it off. And that way we're actually, because you might notice that Tony Lemley, hello on board from North Carolina. Well, I thought you were in Florida last time you said hello, Tony, but okay. Love having you here from North Carolina. So beautiful down there. Is that we are trying to get back and we're cheating, if you will, as Americans, because we are using an actual dry measuring cup, which only works if we are sure to lighten the flour before we do it. So there we go, very nice and light. There's our 3 cups. Now, it doesn't matter about sugar, it doesn't matter about even salt, but when it comes to flour, it really matters whether we pack it in or whether we just have it be very light into the measuring cup. It actually matters. So if you've ever been baking and something feels a little too tough or a little too dry, it's probably because you're packing that flour in really heavily before measuring it in the 1 cup measure. And then if you were to sift it, not only are you getting the lumps out, but you're lightening it, and you would find that you actually had probably about, I don't know, like a 1/16 of a cup or an 1/8 of a cup too much. So I'm going to just put this back, get it out of my way. There we go. Okay, so let's see. Next step is we're going to put in 2 teaspoons of baking soda. This makes my heart sing. These are magnetic measuring spoons that I believe that Roseanne posted. I know that Joanne posted some, but Roseanne also posted some. And what I loved about these is that they were stackable and magnetic. So you can see, I'm sure if I turn them upside down, the weight would, oh no, they're magnetic. So the weight is pretty good. Lucy says, where did you find your large jar? I like that measuring cup, fits in it. So I found it at Target. These decanters I got at Target maybe 5 to 6 or 7 years ago. I absolutely fall in love with them. I keep looking for fancy schmancy, and to be honest with you, nothing has made my heart sing like all 3 of these fabulous decanters that I have flour, sugar, and powdered sugar in. I just love them. Okay, all right, so because sometimes fancy schmancy doesn't need to be, right? Okay, so the next thing is 2 teaspoons of baking soda. So in this case, let me grab the teaspoon. This is a half tablespoon. Oh, that's interesting. These come in tablespoon, half tablespoon. Here's a teaspoon. I've got 2 teaspoons. So in this case, I'm actually able to use the round. The elongated is so that you can fit it into spice jars, which is really fun, which is how this conversation started. So I'm going to pack down this baking soda, and I'm going to measure this off. By pack down, I didn't mean pack down, but I was going to lighten it because there's so many lumps in baking soda. So many lumps. Okay, get this off. Okay, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. So I love this kosher salt. The regular Diamond kosher salt is a great product, but it's a little too coarse, I believe, for baking. And so what I use for baking is this Williams-Sonoma finely ground kosher salt. So we're going to put in 1 teaspoon. Recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of the kosher salt. But what's Nanny Bubby? Hey Susan, what's Nanny Bubby's rule of salt when you're baking? If you really want to bake something good, you absolutely have to double the salt. So this recipe called for 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, and I am putting in 2 because you can never have enough salt when you've got sugar. And you can quote me on that. That's Nanny Bubby's rule of baking. Okay, and then we're going to do 1½ teaspoons of cinnamon. So I'm going to tell you a really cute story. This is all the cinnamon I have left from when we were baking or whatever it was that we were making last week, which I actually honestly do not remember what it was. That it was, whatever it was we were doing, gosh, it was using the pumpkin. Maybe it was the scones. It was the pumpkin scones is what it was. Anyway, I noticed that I was low on cinnamon after making the pumpkin scones, and but I forgot to replace it. So I'm getting ready to do this recipe, and I realized, much to my chagrin, that I did not have enough cinnamon to finish this recipe with all of you today. Maybe I do, we shall see. But I texted my neighbor next door, and I love this. It's like back in the 50s, right? You ask your neighbor if you could borrow a, cinnamon or butter or milk because you're baking and didn't realize you didn't have enough. And so it just kind of brought back this warm, wonderful feeling. No Facebook notice of the live today. Oh, I'm so unhappy to hear that. Sorry about that, guys. No Facebook knows of how to turn my apron back to where it used to be, right? Okay, there's 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Thank goodness for my neighbor. She brought me over another thing of cinnamon, so 1.5 teaspoons. Let's find the half teaspoon. 3/4, and there is the half. Okay. Take this off. I mean, literally, please write Facebook and complain. Do you think they'll hear you? I don't know. I don't know if they will or if they won't. But anyway, you're here now. That's all that's important. Okay. There's 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. Put this back on to go back to my neighbor. Okay, what is, oh, that's not the right top. This is the right top. Okay, and what is the next thing? 3/4 of a teaspoon of ginger. And I did see a 3/4 of a teaspoon here somewhere. There we go. 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground ginger. Hey Arlene, nice to see you. I received your recipe yesterday. It sounds really wonderful. Thank you for that. Very fun. I love sometimes that a lot of these older recipes, which I love because as Arlene said, it works for her family. Some of them go way, way, way back. And when we were cooking, you know, we would take a can of this and a can of that and somehow mix it together. And you probably don't do that in normal cooking, but from generations to generations to generations, it's always everybody's favorite. And I love that Arlene sent in a recipe that was exactly that yesterday to me. So I'm looking forward to scanning through that a little bit more, to seeing what other recipes I might choose for our retreat. Okay, 1/2 teaspoon of cloves. Let's see, 1/2 teaspoon, here we go. Let me wipe that out just a little bit. I don't want to contaminate the cloves with any cinnamon, even though I'm sure there's some kind of flavor in there that would be cinnamon. Okay. So I love, Roseanne, these are the spoons that you posted in the group, which I love. These are the elongated magnetic spoons. I know Joanne posted something in the group for elongated spoons, but I love the ones that you posted because they were magnetic and easy to not fall apart. And so I'm using them today for the very first time because I ordered them right away. I love them. Thank you so much for that. Anybody, in fact, if anybody wants to get these, because I showed Roseanne how I turned them upside down and the magnets held them together. They didn't drop apart. So everyone seemed a little bit interested in that. So you might just want to post that one more time in the gather group. Okay, I'm just mixing up the flour a little bit. Okay, this I'm very excited about. Fresh ground nutmeg. So I noted last week when making the scones that I had found in the spice section, look at that. There is, I don't know if you can see it, but here are actual whole nutmeg. Do you see that? Aren't they great? Amazing. So what I'm going to do, let's see, this is calling for 1/4 teaspoon freshly ground nutmeg. So let me move this out of the way so that you can watch and see. I'm going to do the trick that Frank taught us. And I feel like I forgot the baking powder, so I'm going to go back and reread that to make sure. Yes, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. I did forget it, so let me get that in. It's a good thing I pull these things out before showtime. So what was it, 1/2 teaspoon? From kosher salt to the 1/2 teaspoon baking powder. So here we go, 1/2 teaspoon baking powder. You know what I admire about baking powder and what I love about Clabber Girl baking powder is that the leveler is right here. So you just put the teaspoon up against that and you level it out. And I wish that baking soda, so I really bought this baking soda hoping that it would have the same thing, but it did not. And I just think every spice, every powder, every soda should actually have this little leveler on it because I think it is genius. And Clabber Girl has been around for thousands of years, and why they haven't, and nobody else has caught on to that technique and implemented it in their jars, like McCormick or whoever you buy your spices. So, okay, that's in. here's a little nutmeg. Is that so cute? I don't know why I think that's so cute. And what I'm going to do is the way that Frank indicated, is that instead of actually going like this and having it drop into what you're making, turn it the other way. You might not have as much control this way, Frank, but if you do this, you can see how much you're getting on the inside, if you can see that. And then you can turn it upside down and put it in. There we go. Unbelievable. And also, if I were to choose to measure it, it would probably be easier just to slide. In fact, I will try to do that, because I just want to see. And this is really making a lot, and I have yet to get through a whole nutmeg, so it's very interesting. I had indicated last week when we were making the stones that I had looked for fresh nutmeg, but I was looking in the produce section as opposed to looking in the spice section. So I was actually delighted and surprised to actually find it in the spice section. It was really great. Okay, where is a ½ teaspoon here? Okay, so I think what we're going to do, let's see if this will slide off. Well, it slid off, and it only actually made about 3/4 of a teaspoon, although I did put some more extra in, but I think I've got a pretty good idea of what it is, so I think I just need a little bit more. I'm going to go this way because it actually, I have more swift control when doing it upside down, but I think I have a good feel for how much is getting in there now. And I don't want you here all day just while I measure. Oh, a nutmeg grinder. We'll definitely post that and gather, Roseanne. That is amazing. I never knew there was such a thing as a nutmeg grinder. I learned so much from you guys. I absolutely love it. So now I'm just going to take this little nutmeg and put it right back into the spice jar, just indicating that I pulled this out and looked at it, and it says 10. Can you see that? 1021. Of course, it's backwards to you guys now. Tawny Moore is here. Hey, Tawny, nice to see you. But when I buy my spices, I always put the date I buy them, and I only keep them between 1 and 2 years, just depending on, you know, exactly what it is, how much of it I've used. I smell it just to see how fragrant it is before I decide whether or not I'm going to trash it. But I always put the date in a Sharpie pen on it so that as I use them, I keep track. And I always replace everything that I need to replace. Everything goes into the garbage. And I buy all new right before the holidays, because it seems like we use a lot of spices that we only use one time a year during the holidays. So, okay, so lightly packed, oh, nope, we're going to do 1 cup granulated sugar, but I'm going to do it in 2 half cups because my sugar is low. So here, Lucy, is 1 more decanter. It's the mid-sized decanter compared to the flour. And I'm going to level this off. There we go. There's 1. That's 1 half cup, and this is 2 half cups. There we go with the sugar. And last but not least, we're going to put lightly packed brown sugar, about 1/2 cup. So I'll put this back here. And now let's talk about the brown sugar. Where did I put it? I did take it down. Well, I took it off the shelf, so I am looking to see where it is. I may have placed it on the shelf, so give me 1 minute. I'm usually so good at this. Oh, here it is, right here. It was holding the recipe. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, lightly packed brown sugar. So if you remember, I just want to share this with you. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. So this is a clay disc. It is a terracotta clay disc. I had immersed this in water, and I keep it in the container with my brown sugar. Now this brown sugar has been in here for about 6 months, and when I used this last week, for the scones, to my surprise, it was still very moist and very easy to get into. Then I had moistened this again and put it back in, not knowing when the next time was that I was going to need the brown sugar. And lo and behold, look at how soft it is. It's just, I mean, it's just so pliable. It's like I just bought it off the grocer's shelf. And I put this just like this in here like this. So this is sealed in the bag, and this is in the plastic container. And look at how fabulous it is. So you can find these on Amazon. I'm sure you can. They're OXO. I'm pretty sure we bought them. They're made by OXO. Hey, Barbara Kirsch. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. And take a look at OXO. Call it terracotta moistener or something like that. See what pops up. And if you have trouble, let me know, and I will try to find the link where I purchased it for myself. Okay, so Lucy's here and says you have the neatest kitchen gadgets. You know, I never knew or thought that I did, but I guess I do. All right, thank you for that. Half cup, lightly packed brown sugar. You know, I come across these things, but I mean, let's face it, Lucy, the magnetic measuring spoons that are both elongated for getting into a spice jar or round just for everyday use. I mean, I never knew that there were such things as elongated measuring spoons, so how exciting is it for me? I mean, this is just one of the examples of the fabulous things that you guys all teach me. And what I really love, I'm going to show you this all again, is that they're magnetic and gravity is not pulling them apart, which is great because when I put them in my cupboard in the little container, in a little basket that I keep them in, they're not falling all over the way that my other stacked spoons do that are on a ring, right? They're on a ring and they just fall over and they're hard to keep. Okay, so this came out very beautifully. I'm going to use this fabulous knife. Just going to make sure all that flour is off and just, oh my gosh. This is so amazing, this terracotta thing. Look at how moist that is. Can you guys see that? It's just so moist. Look at that. It just right around. You wouldn't even know. You would think I just bought it in the grocery store. So we're going to mix this around just a little bit. Doesn't need to be sifted, which is great. And a little bit of this brown sugar is so moist it's actually clumping, which is kind of funny. So I'm going to seal this back, if you will. Fold it in. I'm going to grab my disc. Actually, I'm going to, let's see. I've got these eggs, and I'm going to take the terracotta disc, and I'm just going to let it rest in this water while we're finishing up, and then now it can get moist again before I put it back into this container. So we'll just put this over here. We'll put the recipe back on it so I can see what I'm doing here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take 2/3 cup of vegetable oil. So I'm going to remind you that when it comes to vegetable oil, I never follow that advice. I don't believe in vegetable oil. It is a very unhealthy thing for you to have. So I choose a great, like canola oil is considered a vegetable oil. But I ask you this, have you ever eaten a canola? Do you even know what a canola is? Do you even know where it comes from? No, you don't, because it is a man-made product, okay? And so if you want, I mean, eat butter, don't eat canola oil, because canola oil will harden your arteries faster than you can say zippity-doo-dah. So my choice for a neutral oil when baking, I use it in my breads, I use it in my challah, I use it in my baking, is avocado oil. So 2/3 of a cup of avocado oil, and which is a vegetable oil, but it is not a canola oil, okay? All right, if you're gonna use canola oil, I don't wanna know about it, okay guys? Don't tell Nanny Bubby you're using canola oil. I will lecture you from here to the North Pole and back, okay? Dump that canola oil, and I know it is very, very expensive to buy avocado oil if you're going to be deep fat frying anything. You know what? don't deep fat fry either. Why? Maybe once a year, okay, and once a year, go to the expense of the avocado oil. But beyond that, you should not be deep frying anyway. Okay. Oh. Probably should not say any of this, but I do. Okay, because I'm always honest, right? Okay, honest Nanny Bubby. There's 2/3 of a cup of oil. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do, I believe it's eggs. Now remember, the best thing that you can do is first of all, I brought these to room temperature, and I did that by putting them in warm water. The cold eggs bring down the temperature of the water, and the hot water brings up the temperature of the eggs, and now I have room temperature. And I'm just going to crack it into a measuring cup, smell it to make sure that they're good eggs. So I've got 1. The reason that we do this separately, here we go, it smells a little bit like cinnamon because there was cinnamon in this measuring cup, is that if you put this into a mix and you have a bad egg, you've got to throw the whole thing out and start all over again. So we've got 3 fresh eggs without any problems. Of course, when you buy your eggs fresh, you take them right out of the farm from a chicken. I think there's more of a risk of that happening, but I always like to put the eggs and crack them separately just to make sure, Okay, so there's the eggs, the oil. Now we're going to use the pumpkin puree. And we also need a 1 cup measure for that. Okay, 1 cup, yep, and 1 cup of the mashed ripe bananas. So here we go. Look at this beautiful pumpkin puree. Can you see this? Look how beautiful this is. Look at how rich and golden it is. This I just made on Monday, believe it or not. Or Sunday, maybe I made it on Sunday. It's absolutely amazing. And here we go. Look at that. What's really great about this is that when you do the pumpkin puree out of a can, it oxidizes in that can. And the fact is that pumpkin really is not that brown color. It just oxidizes when it's in a can. And so when you see this, how beautiful and golden it is, it's just really evident of how fresh when you make your own is. If you didn't see me make the fresh pumpkin, you can find it on nannybubby.com under TV, because I did it for Channel 8 last week, and I also did it here on the Nanny Bubby page. We made it because I had to experiment with that recipe before I went on Channel 8, and so that was a lot of fun. Okay, so there is the fresh pumpkin, and now we need 1 cup of the bananas. So we need to mash these bananas. There we go. There's 1 banana. I don't know how many bananas it will take to make a cup, but I'm thinking 2. So let's start with 2. I've got a 3rd one sitting back there. Hey Marcy, these are very pungent and very delicious. They're overripe, and when you bake, hey Patricia and Sulaco, when you bake, honestly, using your overripe bananas is really fantastic. If they ever over-ripen to the point where you need to freeze them, don't worry about it. In fact, you can either mash them and freeze them mashed, or just freeze them whole, and then just defrost them, and you can bake with them just as easily. So I'm just going to mix the eggs and the puree here. Eggs, pumpkin puree. Look at how golden and beautiful that is. It's just stunning. The color is just, it's a golden yellow. It's just beautiful. Let's see. Can I mash with this? I don't think so. So let me grab a fork. This actually is pretty easy, so we're just going to mash away here. Now, I will be putting this in the oven, and you will not be here when I take it out of the oven, but I promise you I will take pictures. I'm going to show you a cute and fun hack in terms of how to grease the pan for the pumpkin bread. I'm going to do it one way, and I'm going to do it another way, so stand by for that. And then when I take it out of the oven, I absolutely will take it outside, I will cool it, and then I will show you all exactly how it turned out. Maybe dust it with a little bit of not brown sugar, but powdered sugar on top. Maybe a few pecans, maybe some candied pecans, we'll see. Okay, so you really kind of want to mash this so good because you want it to kind of liquefy just a little bit. You could put it into a food processor, but you really need to work with ripe bananas because if it's not a ripe banana, there's no way that it's going to taste good, and it won't. You can put it in a food processor and mash it all you want, and it is just not going to get the right texture. It really has to be bananas that are ripe, that you can just really loosen up, get all the fabulous banana juice working. There you go. Okay. And this, my friends, actually is just about a whole cup. So let's see. See how close we got. Let's see. See that? That is short. Luckily, I have another banana. Where is it? Okay. Let's try some more. So a cup of smashed banana is about, I would say, 2.5 bananas, but I'm going to put in the whole Megillah. I'm going to put in the whole banana. A little extra banana in this recipe I don't think will hurt much. So let's see. So now you could put chocolate chips in this, which I think pumpkin banana chocolate chips sounds amazing, doesn't it? You could put pecans in this, which I'm going to do. I actually might do half pecans and half chocolate chips, so I think I might pull out my step stool and look up in my cupboard and see what kind of chocolate chips I have. And I'm going to show you a little hack for how to put chocolate chips into a recipe and how to keep them from floating down to the bottom so that they are evenly distributed into your recipe. So let's see if we can get to that. So, any questions? Is anybody there? Everybody still watching? Everybody got their notification? I don't know that anybody got a notification. So, I guess today was it notification day. Okay, this is really nice. And we're going to pack this right into the 1 cup. And you know what? We literally got almost exactly 1 cup. It all fits in. 1 heaping cup is what we got, which is great. Okay. Okay. Let's mix that in. See where the cloth is. I hear Wolfgang Puck in my ear telling me to clean up after myself. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to gradually, just like in a Yay for Chocolate. Okay, I'm good. Thanks, Pat. So look at how just rich. I know you can see that, right? It's just so beautiful. And now little by little, we're just going to add in, just lightly pack, let me dry my hand, and just go ahead and whisk this in, just a little bit at a time. We don't want, oh, I'm going to sneeze from the cloves. I can smell the spices, the nutmeg. Oh, that looks so beautiful. This is going to go in the oven at 350 degrees for about 45 to 60 minutes, just depending on, where you are, how your oven is, how calibrated it is, right? Okay. And so usually in baking, you always start with your wet ingredients and you just gradually add in your dry ingredients. You don't want to overwork your dry ingredients into the wet. You mostly want to fold it because like in bread or cake or anything else, you really don't want to overwork the flour and overstimulate the gluten. You just really want to give it a chance because it becomes tough. And when it comes to bread like this, you just really want to make sure that you're being very gentle with it. So from this point, I'm going to grab the spatula and just start folding it very nicely, just so I don't overwork it. Take that out of your way so you can see. There we go. I can smell the spices in this. It's like amazing. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And our last little bit, always go down to the bottom. There's always that little pillar of indentation down there and around the edges. You want to make sure you get all that shoveled down. Okay, I'm doing everything I can to not sneeze here with these spices for you guys. And the last little bit. There we go. Okay. Bring this back into my flours. I don't want it to get wet. I want it to stay dry. And so here we go. Okay. So I'm not big on nuts. I love pistachios, and so pistachios in anything I'm a nut for. But I like to eat nuts whole. I love them as a snack. Sometimes I eat too many, and I don't care, because I love to eat raw nuts, almonds, pistachios, hazelnuts, etc. Chocolate chip cookies with pecans or walnuts or whatever else kind of a nut that you put in chocolate chip cookies, I'd rather have the chocolate chip than the pecans or the walnuts, or even almonds. Although almonds in something I would eat, but I just don't, the other nuts taste very bitter to me. So, in this recipe, oh my gosh, look at how golden and beautiful this is turning. Isn't that great? So in this recipe, it calls for about a cup of pecans. So I'm just going to show you a trick very quickly. I'm going to take these pecans, I'm just going to do a handful, and I'm just going to show you just a little bit of a trick here. So in this right here, I'm going to take about a handful of these pecans, put them, now these I have taken a rolling pin in this bag. I burnt the bag and I took a rolling pin to all of these and I just crushed them with the rolling pin right into the bag. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little bit of flour and I'm going to sprinkle it right over the pecans. This is a trick from Ina Garden. And if you coat the, oh there's Biggie, if you coat the pecans or whatever else that you're using and shake them off, as you put them in, they're not gonna drop to the bottom. They're just gonna go wherever you place them in the recipe. It just makes them a little heavy, and that way, whatever recipe you're making, they don't drop to the bottom. And what I'm gonna do is, let me look, just a little bit of flour. Let me look and see. Oh, Biggie, it's okay. Here we go. And I have these chocolate chips from a recipe that Roseanne shared with us, which I don't remember, but Biggie, it's okay. It's okay, Biggie, come say hi. Okay, hold on here. Thank you. Russell to the rescue here. Thank you so much. Okay, get this. There we go. Untwisted. This is the Guillard chocolate. And the same thing with the chocolate chips. What we're going to do is, oh, actually this is the Trader Joe's dark chocolate. I thought it was the Guillard, but it's the Trader Joe's. I'm going to take a handful of the chocolate chips like this. Also put them into the flour and then take them out. Get all the flour off of them. Just drop them in, and that way, if you didn't know, this keeps your chocolate chips and your nuts from falling down and all sitting on the bottom. Keeps them from, you know, just lightens them. There's resistance with the flour on them, and it's a great idea. So there you go. Just a little bit. How many of you like that tip? Give me a high five if you like that tip. Huh? High five. Somebody. If you're still there watching. Okay. So, all right, we're going to fold this 1 or 2 times just to mix. There we go. And they're not falling down to the bottom of the recipe, which is just awesome. Just laying right in there. Okay, so now let me show you my handy dandy little trick, my little hack. That's one hack, right, for keeping your nuts and your chocolate from falling to the bottom. And then now here's my most fun hack. Okay, so here are 2, this makes enough for 2. And there, I have 2 different size pans, so I'm going to see if this will go the whole way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the small one, because I'm going to do this 2 different ways. I'm going to start with the small one. I'm going to spray with the avocado oil. And you can grab this, and I am going to take about 1/4 cup of sugar, and I'm going to pour that into this, and I'm going to dust the sides of this pan with the sugar instead of the flour. There we go. Which should keep the banana bread from actually sticking. And what's really great about that is that if you just wanted a little bit of a sweeter caramelized crust, this does it. It's the sugar that actually keeps the bread from sticking. So let me just count this because I've got the sugar all over it. Then in the bigger one, hold on. Well, okay. Then in the bigger one, I'm going to go ahead and use the flour just so you can see it both ways. But personally, I think when baking, why make it dry and, you know, with the flour? I prefer actually the sugar. So here we go now with the flour. Just a little bit onto the bottom. And then we're going to just shake it. Now there's all kinds of ways that you can do this. You can use that baker's joy that you get from Williams-Sonoma. You can use all different kinds of things to grease your pan with. This I'm not liking at all because I think I didn't put enough flour in there. Hold on. Love it when I make a mistake. Okay. I think it takes a lot more flour than what I put in here, so here we go. Okay, there we go. Now it's sticking. There we go. All right. But I just think that there's an elegance. If you're going to bake, bake, right? And I just think that lining the pan with the sugar mixture is so much more elegant. It caramelizes. It adds a really sweet flavor. And there we go. Okay. Was so much harder than it should have been. Okay. So there we go. I dumped out the rest of that. And here we go. Let's first start with the bigger one. So good. That really looks amazing. I feel like it could use just a little more. Okay. And I have it on this sheet pan because I don't want it to, you know, over pour or over bubble over in the oven. We just cleaned the ovens yesterday, believe it or not. So I don't really know how far this is going to rise, but I can tell you that the golden color of this, the bananas with the pumpkin being in the air has already started to oxidize a little bit more, and it's getting more and more golden. I really feel like I could put this all in one pan, but we shall see how much it rises. I will be just as surprised as you. So good. I love this time of year, don't you? Just love it. So many wonderful things that are just during this fall time of year. Pumpkin, really. Get all of this out. There we go. Last little bit. Okay. And that's it. What do you guys think? There we go. Thanks for the thumbs up, Pat. Okay, there you go. I'm going to take these. I'm going to show you them to you just a little bit closer. Look at that. Don't those look amazing? I'm just going to drop them a little bit like that just to make sure they're nice and even. There we go. Looks good. I can turn you around and you can watch me just place them into the oven. Would you guys like that? Anybody that's left, stand by. Here we go. Over to the oven. There we go. Okay. Here I come. Oh, I always forget to take that pan out. Stand by. Nothing like being able to go into the oven. Here, just a minute, let me turn it around. There we go. Well, I'm just trying to get the best view for you guys. There we go. Into the oven. Out we go. Verica is here. Hey, Verica Robinson. I did not see you when you got here. Okay. Arlene says, I just baked 2 chocolate cranberry cakes this morning with slivered almonds. That sounds like an amazing recipe. Do share that recipe. Do. Cranberry chocolate sounds amazing. Did you ever get that oven calibrated? I never did. But what I did do is, it's a hard thing to do. Meaning that I have to call, I have to make, an appointment and all of that. But what I did get is I got an oven thermometer, and I keep an eye on that oven thermometer. And what I found is that my oven is 25 degrees. When it says that it's 350 on the oven, it's actually only 325. So I've been setting the oven 25 degrees warmer than what I need to for the recipe, and then I keep my eye on the oven temperature thermometer to make sure it's at the proper temperature. So I'm faking it, right? I'm faking it because soon I'm replacing this kitchen and that oven. So I'm like saying, do I really want to spend the money to call them out and have them calibrate my oven when I am sure that I'm going to be getting rid of it very, very soon. Anyway, keep crossing my fingers. Got to finish up what I started over 2 years ago. And then take a deep breath and be willing to go through all of this again, because it has been a nightmare. And I will be losing my kitchen when I start this remodel project, which means that it's going to compromise my being with you guys every day. So I've got to find a way and a place to be able to coordinate that, so that I all of a sudden, after a year of being with all of you, I don't just disappear because of my kitchen. So Arlene says, just use chocolate cake mix and follow directions and added cranberries, dried, and almonds. There you go. It's almost like a Harvey Wallbanger cake, right? Just so easy. All right, everybody, that's it for me today. That was 50 minutes. I'm going to set the timer for 45 minutes and check it. And then as soon as it comes out of the oven, I can, Laguna. Yes, I'm going to Laguna. How did you know? How did you know that? Oh, Laguna? I don't know what you mean by Laguna. Yes, I am going to Laguna on Saturday morning. So on Monday and or Tuesday, I'll be doing something different. And I may not be here on Tuesday afternoon because we'll be traveling back. But tomorrow we're going to make an orange Negroni. And what's really great about an orange Negroni is that it is a perfect Thanksgiving cocktail. And so I just feel like making it tomorrow. So that's it for me today, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Go out and spread love like butter. Bye, everybody.